Lesson number 31, we are learning JavaScript and we are learning JavaScript by examples. So in this lesson, we will start a new project, and this is the script that we will recreate, which is available on this website, and it is simply an addition script. You have two numbers and you have a plus symbol to tell you what you're supposed to do. If you type in an answer, it will give you a tick or a cross. If I type in a wrong answer, I have a cross. Okay, I will show you how to create one of these questions in this first lesson. So let's close this, and this is a new folder that I have just created for this new application. I will open my text editor, which is Sublime text editor, and you can use any text editor that you want. So I will save this file as in the desktop. This is the new folder, and I will give it a name of edition-1 HTML, first lesson of the new series. And if I save it now, minimize this, open this folder again, this is the blank HTML document that we have created. I will open it up by double clicking it, change the size of the window, and close this, open my text editor, resize the text editor, and now we have text editor and the browser side by side, so we can see what we are doing. So I will type in HTML, press tab to create the basic HTML skeleton. I will remove the things that are not absolutely necessary, so we have a very minimum code for the beginners to understand. We have an opening head tag and a closing head tag, and an opening body tag and a closing body tag. So within this body tag, I will create a div element. I will type in div and I press tab twice, and we have created a div element, which is an invisible element on the page. If I refresh it, there should be nothing visible. However, we can target this div element or any element with the help of CSS. So I will say style and press tab, and we have an opening style tag and a closing style tag, and within these two tags we can target any div element with the help of CSS. So I'll target every div element that is available on this page, and so far there's only one div, and I will give it a border of 1 pixel solid black. Save it now, refresh it. We now have a div that has some CSS properties, and this is only one property. Okay, width 100 pixels. Save it again, refresh it. Our div now has a width of 100 pixels and height of 30 pixels should be good enough. Save it, refresh it. Our div now has these CSS properties, and no matter how many divs I create, they will all have these CSS properties. We want to give this div container an ID, and I will call it container. Okay, nothing should happen because we haven't done anything as yet. We have given it an ID, so we can target it with the help of our JavaScript. So I will say script and press tab, and we have an opening script tag and a closing script tag, and within these two tags we can type in our JavaScript. Okay, so I will create a variable by the name of number1, and I will say document dot create element. So I'm creating a div similar to this one, but with the help of JavaScript rather than with the help of HTML. And this is how you create a div element, document dot create element. This is a method that you use to create an element, and that element, this element, is now saved in this variable. Notice if I save it and refresh it, nothing is visible other than this div, because this, unlike this div element which is attached to this body as a child element, so this is the parent and this is the child, this div is in the computer's memory still. It is not attached to any of the elements. And I will copy this and I will paste this, change the name of the variable. So we now have two div elements that are still in the computer's memory, not attached to any of the element. To be able to see these elements, I will attach these two divs to this container, to this element. I will say container and append, and let me copy this and paste this here. Okay, so we should be able to see another div. Now notice the color of this div. Refresh it. Now it is darker because it has exactly the same properties, but instead of one div element, there are now two div elements visible. So if I type in a comma and copy this and paste it here, if I save it now, both these two divs should be visible, and these two divs are now the children of this div. Now this is the inner HTML of this div, which is empty, and these two div elements also have an inner HTML which is also empty. So we want to say number 1, which is this variable, and I will type in a dot inner HTML, and I will give it a fixed value of 3. So if I save it now, refresh it, this div element has an inner HTML which is a fixed value at the moment, and I will say number 2, which is our second variable, and I will say inner HTML, and I will give it a value of 4, for example, for this one. If I save it now, refresh it, both the divs have an inner HTML. One has a value of 3 and the other one has a value of 4. Now we can target our div elements. We can say font size 30 pixels. If I save it now, the inner HTML of these two divs should be 30, and I will say text align right to make it similar to what was visible on the website. Okay, now I don't even need this property. Save it now. We just have two numbers. The divs are still there, but they do not have any border. So we also want to create an input element. We will do that with the help of JavaScript, and I will call it result, and I will say document dot create element, and this time we want to create an input element. Save it. Now nothing should happen because again this element is still in the memory of the computer. So we can copy this. To be able to see this, we can copy this, we can type in a comma and paste this here, save it. Now our input element should also be visible with default CSS properties. So we can also target any input element on the page, and this is how you target an element. I will copy these properties and I will paste them here. So our input element also has the same properties as these two divs. Save it, refresh it. Now we have an input where you can type in an answer, but nothing will happen. Let me change the size or width of this input element so it looks a bit better now. So we are getting there. Now we also have to create a plus symbol, and for that I will create a class, okay, and I will call it plus sign, and I will create a pseudo element. So what I have done, I am creating a pseudo element, okay, and I will give it a content, and within single quotation marks I will type in a plus symbol. Okay, so we have created a class, which should not make any difference because this class is not attached to anything. However, we want to attach it to this div element, which is number 2. Copy this and right mouse click and paste it here, and class list dot add an opening and a closing bracket, single quotation mark, and name of the class. Copy and paste it here. Save it, refresh it. We have a plus symbol attached to this div. Okay, now we can say position absolute, and if I save it now, this is now superimposed, and I will say left 0 0. Save it, refresh it. It is too far on the left side, so I will say 5 pixels. That should fix our script. Refresh it. Now we have our plus symbol, maybe a bit more, 10 pixels. Save it, refresh it. Now we have our first question, and this was the basic functionality that we will be following to create the rest of the page that we saw in the beginning of this lecture. One more thing I want to fix. If you notice, if I refresh it, the cursor does not appear in this input field. I have to click into it to be able to type in something, and we can fix that. This field is saved as a result, as a variable called result, and I can say, I can copy and paste it here, copy and paste it here, and I can say dot focus. That should do the trick. If I save it, refresh it, you can see the cursor appears automatically within this input field without me having to click into it. So that is all for today, and I will see you in the next lesson. Thank you very much.